Matt, it has
Yeah.
happened. The Ottawa
Yeah. Cook.
Senators, Pierre Dorion, and Ryan Bonus, they made it happen. The Ottawa Senators now have Jakob Chychrun officially on the roster. And I don't know, it's still setting in. It's unreal for me. But I wanted to get your reactions and just what did you think when this just came out of the blue?
Um, okay. So I had a couple things happening. I was cooking dinner, and I got an auto you know how you set up our Twitter to have like the sends communications notifications on. Smart. That's how we get some of our scoops quick. But
You gotta
um,
love those scoops.
I'm cooking dinner. I'm cooking some paneer, and it says trade alert: Senators acquired Jakob Chychrun. And I'm like, holy shit. And Rebecca's like, what? And I didn't say anything. She's like, Matt, what happened? And I was like, the Ottawa Senators acquired Jakob Chychrun. So I'm
Oh my
losing my
god.
goddamn mind. And then I start laughing, and I'm dancing to the Jonas Brothers at this point. And I start laughing
The
because,
Jonas
yeah,
Brothers?
I know, goaded. Literally, no insider whatsoever had this. None. And
Yeah,
that's the funniest part of it.
there were some suggestions. Like obviously, last night it was after the Sens won. Well, I mean the previous night actually, you had said if the Ottawa Senators if they win against Detroit in the first half of the back to back, you're like I think the Senators will start looking at maybe bringing someone in via trade and. Obviously, I had seen that LA, Pittsburgh, Carolina, all these teams, even potentially Winnipeg, were in on Jakob Chychrun, and I was like, I don't know, man. And then I saw Washington. They
Yeah,
trade
sign.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, they
yeah.
they trade away. What's his face? I can't even. My mind is too
Gustafson, they
preoccupied.
traded away
Yes, and they get that
Gustafson and
first.
Orlov.
Yeah, and I was immediately when they made that, I was like, man, they have other assets. They could potentially turn
Yeah.
around and swing a trade for Jakob Chychrun. And I know Ottawa's got a lot of B prospects. A lot of their good prospects have graduated, as we all know, to the NHL level. So I was like, who is Ottawa going to part with? And last night I was up at midnight. I couldn't sleep,
Nice.
and I was, yeah, I know. I was thinking to myself, I'm still jet lagged from my trip, so I'm like too wide awake. The Sens have won back to back in Detroit. I'm like, okay, if a Jakob Chychrun trade is going to go down for the Sens, what would it take? And what I had written out, and I'm kind of been preaching it a little bit on Twitter. I think that if the Sens want to get a depth forward, Nick Bukestad would be a good player to go after. So anyway, I was like, maybe Ottawa has to give up. I had a 2023 first, but I actually had it only the protection wasn't top five. I had top one protection.
Dang.
Basically, I was like, if this
He's
is a lottery
wildin'.
pick, yeah, I was like, if the Sens are going to trade their 2023 first, they got to have Bedard protection on that bad boy. And that's
Yeah.
it. And then I had the 2024 first and 2024 second, Washington's, and a 2024 fourth, Chicago's. And Ottawa would get Bukestad, Chychrun, and Ottawa would also give up Kelly, just that Arizona would have a warm body. And then
Yeah.
I had, I think, Mandalize and another player. I think it was Boucher. But man, now the Sens come out and they get
They didn't even
Chychrun
give up
for
a prospect.
I
Like,
know. I was shocked. I thought for sure, like maybe Lassie Thompson at the
yeah.
minimum, or JBD, who I wouldn't want to see go out the door, but I thought it was totally possible that he was on the chopping block. Um,
It kind of makes you wonder that Ottawa being the only team, well, actually that's not at all true because Washington was interested and what have you, but Ottawa is probably the furthest away from the playoffs, now tied with Washington. So Arizona maybe, salivated at the idea of getting like almost a lock of a top 10 pick, which, isn't so much of a lock anymore.
yeah,
Um, Straight up though, that's for like 18 months of waiting. That's a pretty crappy return if you're
yeah,
Arizona. Like, I genuinely believed if it was going to happen with Ottawa, it would be, some form of protected first from this year, some form of first next year. And then, like, it very well could have included, because we're giving up that second first, like, it would be a lesser prospect, but you'd
Yeah,
need to do quantity on lesser prospects. So, like, a
definitely.
guy like a Stapchuk would be
Yeah,
very much of like interest to them, but not giving up a pit like a prospect at all is genuinely astonishing.
it's
Um,
shocking. Like, look at the DeBrincat trade last summer.
yeah,
Pierre Dorion gets him for a first, second, and third.
yeah,
The first ended up being Kevin Kurchinski, who I think will be a decent defenseman, but
yeah,
not as good of a player as DeBrincat. And then
yeah.
the second turns out to be some guy they drafted who I didn't even have on my radar as a player.
Oh
And
yeah,
then, and then the third round pick is for, next season, and who knows what that'll be. But this is another trade where Pierre Dorion and Ryan Bonus go out. They target Chychrun, who it seems like they've had their eyes on for a while, and then they're like, that's too much. They come back. It's a back and forth, right?
yeah,
And then finally, yeah, like we said, like when LA made that trade for Gavrikov, I was like, oh man, they were the ones who were most in on
yeah,
Chychrun according to the insiders. So
yeah,
as soon as that happens, and then the Canes go out and get Gostisbehere, I'm like,
yeah,
okay, Arizona's down to, Ottawa, Pittsburgh, potentially Washington if Washington wanted to flip, their picks and make it happen. But
yeah,
Pierre Dorion comes out and gets another big W, and I'm blown away that it was just a first and 2 seconds. And I know
yeah.
one of the seconds is conditional if the Sens make it to the Eastern Conference Final this year, it becomes a first. No offense, I really like where this roster's headed. I don't think they're an Eastern Conference Final team this year, so I think that pick will stay a second round
But
pick.
never say never.
Never say never, baby. I would not be upset. um, but here we go. We got back to bite saying every demon's been traded but Chychrun. PD definitely going to wait till the price drops and try to scoop him. And I agree. And,
Yeah,
earlier this year, we had a podcast host for an Arizona Coyotes podcast. He jumped
Richie
on.
Flores, good
Richie
guy,
Flores,
good
shout out,
guy.
yeah, shout out to him. We did a great episode with him. We asked him about Chychrun playing on the right side. He said no, Jake Chychrun never really plays on the right side. Sometimes on the power play, but generally not. So we took a look at the analytics from Hockey Viz, and I'll throw that up on here now. Oh, that
Oh
is
my god,
that
it's a
is the
Discord
night.
channel.
And throwing it up on the screen here, we got Jakob Chychrun on the left side here. You can see Jakob Chychrun here. I'll zoom in on this bad boy because that's kind of
Yeah,
it's kind of
for
small on
those
the
that may
stream.
not know, Matt, could you maybe break this down for us?
Oh yeah, don't worry. So for anybody who's watching or just tuning in, so essentially these are Hockey Viz's isolated impacts. So this is taking into account a player's impact away from the coaching, the teammates, the competition. Like, how good is that player at what they do? And what this is showing us here is essentially that Jakob Chychrun generates a lot of offense from that left-handed side. And I think it would kind of be a travesty to switch him to the right side, especially when over here I got Jake Sandy up. Sanderson tends to generate more of his offense from the red side. That's what this red's showing us. So I think if you end up putting Jake Sanderson on the right side here, and you put Jakob Chychrun on the left side, the Jakes are going to get it done, and I think you're going to have a lethal, either first or second pairing. I think you can give them as many minutes as Shabbat and Zub, and that'll be fucking lethal. Excuse my language, but I'm fucking
It's
psyched,
one
man.
of those
I'm
times,
so
eh?
pumped.
Yeah.
On the defensive side of the puck, uh, like Sanderson here, at a -2%, that essentially saying that he's like, I would say better than league average, just slightly. I know we've all, as Sens fans, really pumped up Sanderson's defensive impact, and he's definitely been good on the defensive side of the puck. This is just the expected goals against, so it's good that he's a minus in that category. You want to see that. Chychrun, it looks like, is able to defend the middle of the ice well. Obviously, on the right side, I imagine because it's not his normal side to defend on, that's why it's a bit weaker. Again, Jacob Sanderson actually, or Jacob Sanderson. Now I'm getting the two Jakes messed
Yeah,
up.
like
But Jake Sanderson here, that blue bubble shows that he's actually decent at defending the right side. So I really think, and I tweeted this out, I think Chychrun and Sanderson is a match made in heaven. And if you can have Shabbat Zub even doing second pairing minutes, like that is sick. And I'm just so pumped. I mean,
Yeah. It's
I don't
crazy
even know.
because like Dom Luszczyszyn at the Athletic has those really awesome player cards, and
Yeah.
my voice is giving up because I'm so stoked. Chychrun is playing at the level of a $10.4 million defenseman, and the closest we have is Shabbat at I think 6 or something to that effect. We just got a player who statistically this season and analytically and all that shebang is better than our best defenseman. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That makes my
it's
heart
nuts.
flutter.
Yeah, and man, I remember even just like a month or two ago, people were like, "Yo, maybe Ottawa should just trade." There was a very vocal minority. I should say this first before I say the next part. But there were people out there who said maybe Ottawa should trade Shabbat for Chychrun,
Yeah.
like Shabbat and a
Oh,
pick.
hold
And I
on.
was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You're decimating that left side now to bring in a guy who you don't know how he'll fit in right away." Now I did read. Chychrun is going to start against the New York Rangers tomorrow night, likely.
Oh,
The
baby.
Sens are going to decide in the morning after warm up because after practice because he has not played in a few weeks, so they want to gauge that first. But Chychrun will at least join the team against the in New York, potentially play the Rangers. But guys, they're back home against Columbus Saturday night. We got to fill the barn because that is going to be a fun game. I'm going to be there. I don't know about you, Matt, but
I am also going to be
hell yeah.
there. It's Pride Night.
Yep.
That's extremely important to the hockey community as well, and showing support for those initiatives is extremely important. And now we have even more incentive to go to see, um, arguably one of the best defensemen Ottawa has had in years, from Carlson, now Shabbat, and now we got Jakob Chychrun, Jake Sanderson's coming up. Eric
Oh.
the Branchise is coming through recently. Listen, I will not have any Branchise
Hey,
slander
he's.
on the
I'll bring up his stats too.
yeah,
While
but
we're here.
what
Um,
I'm also saying with this deal is it's so damn, that's a lot of blue for
Brandstrom's
Brandy, eh?
actually really picked it up this season. For
He's awesome.
those, and I will get to some more of the comments on the side there. Back to Bite and Boyan. Just give me a sec, but yeah, Brandstrom's picked up his game this season.
Yeah,
I know he did have that cold spurt, like what I would say maybe December, January,
yeah,
where his game kind of trailed off. November was a bad month for everyone, so I'm just gonna leave that
yeah.
aside. He has picked things up. I am gonna okay. I'm gonna get to back to Bite's comment. So I think that Shabbat deserves to play Chychrun. So for me, Chychrun is better on the left side. Shabbat is better on the left side. You put those two guys on their strong sides. I think now you can just make that match with Shabbat and Zub. And Zub's is the best analytically, the best defensive defenseman the Sens have. And I think because Shabbat this season hasn't been as defensively sound, and I can bring up his stats for you guys just to show what he's been doing. Shabbat has been pretty damn good on the offensive side of the puck, but as you can see, he has struggled. And I think that you put Zub with Thomas Shabbat, and that'll really help Shabbat's game. And then you put Chychrun and Sanderson together, and holy shit, man! Like you, man, I'm swearing like a sailor.
Matt really does not swear this much either.
Yeah, I usually keep things in check here. Bennett's
Yeah.
usually the sailor with his language, but holy crap! And boy, and you bring up a good point too that the trade will probably help dwindle Shabbat's minutes. He will benefit
Yep.
greatly out of this. I think what people are missing is the Ottawa Senators have not had a top four that has looked this good in years.
Yep.
Like even when Ottawa made their Eastern Conference final run, they had obviously Eric Carlson and Mark Method. That was a solid first pairing. Method obviously shutting people down, letting Carlson do his thing. That second pairing was Phaneuf and Cece, and Phaneuf played well in the playoffs. But the fact they got to the Eastern Conference Final with Phaneuf and Cece, and then a bottom pairing, I believe it was mostly Weidman and Clayson. Like this is the first time in quite some time, like potentially since the '07 era, where
Yeah.
the Sens have now had a top four who is rock solid. You
Yeah.
do not have to worry about your top four at all. And I know there are people out there who are worrying about right-handed, left-handed. It doesn't matter. The Senators went out and just acquired the best defenseman on the market.
And
Let
what a
that
lot of
sink in, though.
yeah, what a
That
lot of
is
people
whack.
forget as well is that the whole like handedness thing only became important in the last like 15 years. You know, the best defensive teams of all time, they didn't care what hand they were writing with.
Yeah.
It just mattered who was the best. And quite frankly, you know, this shifts Travis Hamonic out of the top four. You now have your upcoming Jake Sanderson, like phenom defenseman, playing with another established, Norris caliber defenseman.
Yep.
And a point I wanted to talk about is that look at the guys that they've brought in. You know, they've brought in a 40-goal scorer in Alex DeBrincat. They've now brought in a guy who's been in the Norris conversation previously with Jakob Chychrun. I can imagine that guys want to cash in on things, but if you're in the league, you want a cup. And this has the bones, the frame of a cup contending team. As soon, like, I remember in the summer, it was either Jakob Chychrun or Alex DeBrincat. Now
Yeah.
we have both.
Dude,
And
it's nuts.
yeah, and so my point is you have to imagine long term. You know, guys, like, you look at Tampa Bay, they had a dynasty, and now we have the makings of one. And like, yeah, probably talking out of my butt here because people are made like this Sens team makes me so excited. But we have what could be we have a superstar in the making. But
Yeah.
the fact is, these guys very well could take decent pay cuts. I'm not talking like Alex DeBrincat 8 years at $7 million. Let's be more realistic, but team friendly deals to make this a long-term thing.
Oh, 100%. And I think like we haven't even touched on it in the stream yet, but think about the locker room. I
Oh
tweeted
my
this out.
God.
Holy
Yeah.
crap. What do you think like Brady and the boys are thinking about this trade? Like if I'm in that locker room, I'm thinking, okay, Pierre, like, you know, you can go out. We had talked about Sean Dursey. We had talked about Matt Roy.
Yeah.
You go out and you bring in a guy like Jakob Chychrun, and you're
Somebody's
telling your
going to
team-
hug Pierre Dorion. Who's the guy that did it? Maybe it was Brass last time too.
Oh my God. Oh. Anyway, yeah, but I mean, yeah, Brass making the comments. Austin Watson also after the game last night, he said that they want to make a push for the playoffs. Dorion and Bonus just went out and said, "Boys, we want to make that happen. We want to help you make the playoffs. Not only that, we want to help you be a playoff team next year and the year after that." Like, this is a vote of confidence in the team, and I know there are people who wanted Mackenzie Weegar, and I was one of them. I really like Mackenzie Weegar. Great player. He's had a phenomenal season analytically. The fact of the matter is, Jakob Chychrun was the best defenseman on the market. He is 24 years old. He is exactly what this team wanted. A defenseman who is in the prime of his career. He's younger than Thomas Chabot by like 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize this. Same age as when Ottawa acquired Alex DeBrincat. They're acquiring players who fit the mold of the roster. Young players who can contribute. Alex DeBrincat, yes, he's having what people would consider a down season this year. I guarantee you next year, when Josh Norris is back from injury, this top 9 is going to look stellar. Then you're going to have this top 4 that is also looking stellar. And Axkull here chimes in. Essentially, we have 2 number 1 D pairings now. And I agree. I straight out agree. Zub isn't going to give you high-end offensive numbers, but he is just the guy who's going to give you everything you need in the defensive zone, and he can still transition the puck, make smart plays in the offensive zone. He's not a detriment to your roster at all. And you have Thomas Chabot, who obviously has struggled defensively this season. I brought up his hockey viz chart that's still on the screen there. I'll bring up actually Artem Zub's right now, just so everyone can see what Zub's is looking like. You can see Zub is pretty cold in the offensive zone. Yeah, he's pretty cold in the offensive zone, but man, what he does on the on 5-on-5 defense and also on the PK, He's great. And you're going to have him with Shabbat. That's going to really help out that pairing. And then, yeah, you get Chychrun with likely Sanderson. And man, I don't even know how dominant that defensive
Oh my
pairing
God.
will be. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see that. That'll be frig, man.
And
I'm speechless. I'm
yeah,
just like
and
blown
guys, as
away.
as we as we ramble on, leave your comments. Like, we want to hear from you as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
I like, we've been seeing a lot of good comments so far as well. One, Matt, if you can bring up the Sean Oxman with the Pierre deserves GM of the year. Uh honestly,
Well, let's see.
honestly though,
Let's see if they make
like,
the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, I'm kind of with it. And it's actually
yeah,
really funny because what was it, like a week ago when they traded Mott for Gauthier, and people are like, and then he trades a couple of draft picks for Nikita
yeah,
Zaitsev, and people are like, oh, Pierre covering up for his mistakes, and I get that. I actually thought that it might take a first round pick to get rid of Zaitsev because Ottawa going into this summer, we're going to be in a bit of a cap crunch, and no. No, he redeems himself a week later and goes out and gets Chychrun. And now he's just from the summer of Pierre to the fall of DJ Smith. Not in a good way, I guess, like literal fall, not going so hot. And we
yeah,
got Pierre Dorion breaking out of the hibernation in the winter here with a banger of a trade.
yeah.
The
To
other
Dorion,
comment
it's always summer.
The other comment Sean Oxman had was that Chychrun should replace Shabbat in the first power play. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah.
I can bring up the power play numbers here. Shabbat has actually been a better contributor on the power play than Chychrun has this season. I mean, it is the Arizona Coyotes, so
And our
preface it
power
with that.
plays top 5 as well. So
Yeah,
that's,
the
yeah.
power play has been clicking, but honestly, I think this just gives you two extremely strong power play units, no matter how you
Yeah,
slice it.
I actually think this gives us a more opportunity to diversify our power play units. You could load up your first play unit with just one defenseman, and your second power play unit, you now remove Derek Brassard from it, and now you have Jake Sanderson and Jakob Chychrun.
Yeah.
Look at the Chychrun's numbers, or the heat on that left side of the screen there. He should be playing in the offensive zone, and Sandy can quarterback it, so to speak, on the second power play, or you can work it. But oh my goodness, like, watching the capability of this team like manifest itself, and I really love seeing this team push. The Detroit series was a perfect example of this team knows what it's capable of and put it together. And I'll give credit where it's due. DJ coached them perfectly against the Red Wings.
Yeah, I
Um,
would argue there were some discipline issues, but I mean,
yeah, the 8
overall,
power plays, I think the boys sort of let it get away from themselves, and that's okay. They were up 6-1.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, and sorry, I'll bring up on Hockey Reference here, Chychrun, so that people can also see his stats while we're chatting about him. You can keep going, my
yeah, absolutely. I actually just got a question from my future father-in-law, that, how does having 2 defensemen like this, and you could argue even 3 with Jake Sanderson, how will this benefit our forwards, with like DeBrincat, Chucky, Stutzla? They just have one more guy who's really good at passing and really good at shooting. Like, Jakob Chychrun has that booming slap shot,
Yep.
and he will be using it on the power play, I would imagine. So you'll see guys getting primary and secondary assists from this guy scoring goals. His point per game, like, as you can see on screen there.
I can actually pull up his points per game will be on here.
Exactly.
I'm zoomed in though, so it's a little bit
Yeah.
His points per 60 we got. Here we go. Points per game. He's at a .78. So this is actually the best season statistically of his career just by pure point production. And
Yeah.
the Sens got him for a first in 2 seconds. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
And also beyond this, I do
Yeah.
want to get through some of the comments here. Back to Bite said, Chychrun, DeBrincat, Drew, tell yourself that 1 year ago. Yeah, that dude. When I was at the draft in Montreal and the Ottawa Senators acquired Alex DeBrincat, the first Sens fan I saw in Montreal, I ran up to and hugged. I didn't even know
That's
the guy.
amazing.
He didn't know me. We looked at each other, we're like, ah! We just ran up to each other and hugged each other. We were so psyched. And his friend in the Habs jersey looked at us and was like, and I'm like, sorry, man, you're getting Shane Wright tonight, which
Yeah.
we know what happened. Which I mean,
Yeah.
hey, Slavkovsky's been fine, but
Yeah.
Axel says even better considering they give up no players, 100%, and not
Yeah.
even a roster player, like a guy just to send back for them to have. No, they kept their entire roster intact, and I think that does something for morale in the room as well. You know, people have been mentioning Austin Watson's name, and I'd say before the Detroit series, there's a case to be made to trade him. I don't think you can trade him now. I think trading Austin Watson would
Maybe
just
send the wrong message.
it would it would send the wrong message. It would also just, I think, tear a hole in the heart of Sens players. Like,
Yeah.
I think he needs to stay now. So,
Yeah.
you know, keeping him on the roster. Bex chimes in, Chychrun only 24. Holy shit. Feel like he's been sitting out waiting to get traded for 24 years. That's a great comment. It does feel like it has been a long time.
Oh man,
yeah, I mean,
it really
man,
has, eh?
If they had kept Chychrun past the deadline, I feel like the NHL should have fined them or gotten picks from them for
There was
intentional
a
tanking.
really good point made by my coworker Mark, and he said there has to be something in the NHLPA about that, like a future deal. It's not right. Like
Yeah.
he was sat out for like weeks for trade related reasons, and it's like
Yeah.
at a point, it's got to be like a maximum of like 3 games.
Yeah, and I talked to a coworker about, or sorry, not a coworker. I talked about it on Discord with someone, and we were just discussing how there should be a scratch-related thing for players who are waiting trades. I
Yeah.
think it's very obvious when a team is looking to trade a player, and it would be hard to circumvent. But if you said you're scratching a player for trade-related reasons, I think if they miss more than like 7 days or the equivalent of like, let's say 3 to 5 games, then they need to be put back into the lineup.
Yep.
I think for star players, it would be quite obvious that they're being scratched for trade related reasons. Because I know somebody's like, well, what if they just healthy scratch them? I'm like, dude, if you're like healthy scratching, like Patrick Kane, for example, and it wasn't
Yeah.
for a trade, it would be obvious that the team is tanking. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, back to Bite says, does this secure PD's job more? Wonder if we keep our AGMs. If we lose Dorion, man's huge asset. It would suck if we lost him due to new ownership. I don't know what to tell you. I'll keep that on screen for those who are just tuning in.
I would
yeah, go ahead.
I would probably say maybe don't hold your breath on the whole man thing. Everything has been a little sus since his brother was fired, and we haven't heard from him at all. I know he wasn't a very public facing assistant general manager, but at the same time, he was out there and he has not been, period. As for Dorion, yeah, this is a big move, and the DeBrincat move was a big move, and signing Giroux was a big move. Like all of this, and getting Stützle signed to a deal that makes him underpaid at this very moment. Yeah, I would probably say he just earned himself not an extension, but a little faith from new ownership.
I was going to say, I think he earns himself a chance.
Yeah.
I think if the Sens had just stayed pat and gone the rest of the season and missed the playoffs, I think, yeah, new ownership comes out in and they put in their own hockey ops staff.
Yeah.
But I think with this move, the Sens have a real chance at catching ground on the Penguins, Sabres, those kind of teams getting that wild card spot. This gives them that chance. And again, Sean Oxman tuning in, not giving up one roster player or prospect, trading for 2 elite star players. yeah, it's ridiculous that Dorion has managed to turn 2 firsts, 3 seconds, and a third into DeBrincat and Chychrun. That is
Yeah,
ridiculous. No
that's
prospects
like
given up. Because I don't know if anybody remembers, for Alex DeBrincat, the Chicago Blackhawks wanted a prospect as well. And Dorion stayed firm and said, no, we're not giving up prospects. So people dump on Dorion. I have too myself. I'm not a saint.
been
But
there,
I
done
think
that.
yeah, I think we have to give credit where credit's due. Pierre Dorion has managed to acquire star level players in the last year alone. It hasn't even been a year since they've acquired DeBrincat or signed Giroux in free agency, by the way. All three of
Yep.
these players, they actually, got a second for Connor Brown, which in my mind, I know this isn't how the NHL works, but in my mind, they essentially traded Connor Brown for a second and Giroux because they signed Giroux for the purpose of like, okay, he wears 28. Connor Brown, I know he can switch numbers, but I think it
Yeah.
was just easy to flip him out. He's been injured
Yeah.
this whole season, so I don't think it's been a big loss for the Sens. Um, man, yeah, you're bringing in 3-star players over the course
um,
of 1 year, and they're all good analytically. Because I don't know, in years past, I'm sure everyone here knows the players that the Sens were bringing in were not analytical saints. They were not good. They were players who you bring in and you're like, okay. Sanford was actually the only one who had good analytics coming to Ottawa on the defensive side of things, and he obviously didn't pan out. Um, Giroux, DeBrincat, and Chychrun are all players who analytically are improvements to your roster, and that is important. And I
yep.
think that's notable. And I
Yep.
think when you have a guy like Ryan Bonus in your front office, I think it's also underrated, and people don't really talk about Bonus much. Ryan Bonus was the director of player development, a senior scout for pro scouting for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They brought in players year after year to play with, like Crosby, like Connor Sheary, and Frig. I don't know, Zach Aston
Uh,
Reese, and guys like that who just
yeah.
turned into really good depth players. And so I think even we'll see going forward what other players the Sens go out and acquire, but it just shows that I think he's helping the front office as well. And I feel like Dorion's kind of gained a bit of swagger as a GM.
Yeah, he's got that
He's laying down the
riz now,
law.
like
Yeah, he's not letting people push him
Boyne brought
around.
up a good point as well that they paid less for Chychrun than Tanner Jeannot got from Tampa,
Yeah,
and you're not wrong there, Mr. Antonoff. You're not wrong indeed. Um, one I would very much like over the other, and it just so happens that one is now an Ottawa Senator. And if you don't know, Chychrun has very strong ties to the Ottawa area. His family is from here. They have a cottage in Arnprior, Pakenham. So I just saw a Bruce Garriock tweet saying that his agent from Octagon Hockey said he's like super excited to be going to the Ottawa Senators,
yeah,
and rightfully so. It's the perfect time to be joining the Sens, and and I think there was another comment saying I don't think the Sens are done. Because why would you include the Eastern Conference final condition?
yeah. That was Brian who popped in with saying that. And yeah, that's totally possible. I actually thought that Nick Bukestad might be a player the Sens target. He's making less than a mil. Bringing Bukestad up on the screen here for anyone who wants to see. He's had a good season production wise for a bottom six player. He is 30 years old, but he's a right hand center. He's a big boy. DJ Smith will love that. He's six
Yeah,
foot six. He's a guy who I could see coming in and being a good depth piece for the Sens, and a guy you could potentially extend past this season for cheap. I mean, it depends. Maybe he wants more, but he's had a bit of a resurgence in Arizona, and I think a guy like that improves your bottom six, gives you depth down the middle. But I mean, beyond that, I want to get to some of the other. Oh, whoops, I went too far back. I want to get to some of the other comments here because
yep,
there were a lot
absolutely.
rolling in.
And to thank you for everybody for tuning in. I'm
Yeah,
sure you're as excited as we are that Jakob Chychrun is now an Ottawa Senator for basically peanuts.
yeah.
Uh, what a time to be alive, am I right?
Yeah, it's wild. Like I was making supper and I got so distracted and I was trying to like chop vegetables and like boil the pasta and then make like the cream sauce and I was like, oh my God, and like my sauce started to burn and I was like, fuck. And then I messaged Matt. I was like, Matt, we're getting the live stream started.
Bennett was
Um,
like, I can't do it tonight.
yeah,
I
Bennett's
am
like, I'm busy.
overbooked.
Yeah. He had like a Sherlock Holmes fan club meeting. I don't know.
Oh, damn. You really roasted Bennett. Bennett is the best of us. Just putting that one
Yes.
out there. He is a scholar and a gentleman.
Yeah. Okay. PEI sends popped in, said trading Watson now would be a kick in the balls, 100%.
Yes.
Good use of the quote there. Good reference. Kevin Reed says Chychrun has fair size. What's his physical game like? He's not a guy who lays the body very much. He's very much, from what I've watched of him, and I'll be honest, I haven't watched a ton of his game. But back over the summer, we did a podcast episode with Richie Flores. Mentioned this earlier. He is one of the hosts of an Arizona sports podcast. We talked to him quite a bit about Chychrun, and it was around that time we talked. He and I watched video of Chychrun. He's very much one of those players who's like Shabbat. He's very speedy off the rush. He can break past defenders because he's got good speed, get shots from the outside, but also has a lethal wrist shot, good, what do you call it, slap shot. Uh,
Yeah.
can QB a power play quite effectively. He can play left or right side on the power play, which I really like. I think that is great for the Ottawa Senators. Gives DJ Smith more flexibility on what he wants to do. Again, not a big hitter, but he's a guy who is very skilled with the puck. And, he's not a liability defensively either. I have his Hockey Viz chart up here. You can see the bottom left, that blue patch. In front of the net, he's able to defend the front of the net, which,
Is the most
it's
important place a defender
quite
needs
important.
to defend. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. I don't worry too much about the right side being red because generally when a player is playing on the left side defense or right side defense, they should have blue on their side of the ice. If
Yeah.
it's red on their side of the ice, I'm worrying. Or if it's red down the middle, which Chychrun does not have, that means that they're not getting in the lanes, not blocking shots. Chychrun is doing that, which is good.
And another important point to, talk about this chart a little bit more is the fact there should be a big banner that says on the Arizona Coyotes. He is now going to the Ottawa Senators, who are a little better defensively than the Coyotes. At least have a better defensive personnel. I'm just still so happy about this.
I know, man.
Like...
Sean Oxman reminds me a lot of the Matt Duchene saga in Colorado. Don't believe Sakic set him out to trade Lee at least. Yeah, Matt Duchene's was quite lengthy, but also Matt Duchene's was interesting because I remember the time some of the locker room players were actually upset about it. It was a distraction for them. I don't think Jakob Chychrun's was a distraction. At least no players ever vocally said that. I believe it was mentioned that the locker room, oh God, I can't remember who it was from Arizona, but they said that the locker room was quite tight and everything. And so I think there were no hard feelings. I think anyone who's on the Coyotes right now knows that team is going through essentially a scorched earth rebuild. It looks like they're probably going to hang on to Keller, maybe Schmaltz. But aside from that, they really have nothing. They have a crap ton of draft picks. If you go to the cap friendly page for the Coyotes, they basically own the NHL draft for the next 2 seasons at least. So they're really going and doing what Ottawa did, trading off all the assets that'll get them picks and rebuilding through the draft. Boyan pops in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when a team puts a 22-year-old defenseman up, 23-year-old defenseman up on the market, and then drags it out for almost 2 years after he wants to be traded and you were open to trading him, like it drags out. It mentally screws with the player. The vibes are kind of off with the team, but it's generally not because of the player. This was a situation that was created by the Coyotes themselves, and Chychrun was acquiescing to their request and then didn't want to play for them because of how long it's taken to get done. So that's just my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a good point. Boyan said no one's going to want to play his team 3v3. Yeah, I mean, they could start a line of like
Yeah,
Chychrun,
they
Sensen,
could. Like,
Shabbat.
it would be good too. Like,
Anyway, can't imagine being on the phone with Pierre Dorion when he convinced me to give Chychrun to Burkett, especially for draft picks, no prospects, no players. Baby, that's how you make it happen. I
do
love
you
it.
remember when we traded Mike Hoffman uh, to the Sharks, and we got like a third and Mikhail Bodker back, and
Oh
everybody
no,
was
it
like,
was no, it was Bodker a fifth, and then like
yeah, it
some
wasn't very good.
defensive prospect who was
Anyways,
mediocre.
like I just remember people being like, why do people get on the phone with Doug Wilson? Like,
Yeah.
because he clearly does stuff that, and now I'm just imagining Pierre Dorion being like, this is my defenseman now. I'll give you this,
These
and
are
it'll
not the
seem
prospects
reasonable.
they're looking for.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's one in a million.
100%. J Run says would love Bukestad. 100% agree. Good depth
Yeah,
player. We were talking earlier about that condition on Ottawa's second round pick, how it will become a first if they make the Eastern Conference final this year. That is a very bold condition to put onto a draft pick when you're, going to be up against the Bostons, Carolinas, Toronto, Tampa, something like that, if you crack the playoffs and make it through a round or potentially two. So that
yeah.
is a bit cocky, a bit bold, but hey, I love it.
I'm
Um,
wondering though if that was Arizona's like it factor though. You know,
it's
there is
possible. Yeah.
yeah, like maybe they were like, we want to ensure that if you get there,
Hmm.
then like you have to go really far in order for it to be protected.
Yep.
And adding Jakob Chychrun makes up for the loss of Josh Norris.
Definitely.
We probably have won a couple more games with Josh Norris, and I think Jakob Chychrun will help us gain ground.
Yep.
Listen, I wish they did this in November. Uh, I wish they did this in the summer, but
I think
at
the
this,
asking price just fell. It fell
yeah,
so far.
yeah, I
Um,
realize that that's the case, and
yeah.
they needed to stand pat, and Arizona was going to falter because they wanted draft picks in this draft specifically.
Yep. Um, I want to hit a few more comments here. Back to Bite said, think of how this last week has affected the sale price of the team. How many millions was that worth? I definitely think the past year you're adding quality players. Sales of tickets are way up.
Yeah,
Um,
I've
I'm
gone to so
definitely
many games so far.
Yeah, sadly, I've had some where I've had to miss because of sickness, or sadly, I missed last night's Detroit game because I was absolutely just dead from exhaustion from my jet lag. Just got back from Asia, so it's like a 12-hour difference. So I've been trying to get over that. So that's been tough. But yeah, the net value, or I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but what this roster, or sorry, what this organization could sell for, definitely I think is going to be quite a bit. I think it was Bill Daly who was saying it could eclipse $1 billion. That would be insane. Not even the Pittsburgh Penguins sold for that much money.
Yeah,
So that would be quite crazy. A little bit off topic, but does Clevin still get a game or two this year? I don't think so. He personally, to me, is a guy who's probably gonna play out his college career. I think if Ottawa wanted to bring him into Belleville and Clevin was open to that, then that would be a possibility. But for me right now, I think Clevin will go back for senior year,
yeah,
potentially join the Sens after that. I listened to an interview with Brad Barry on TSN 1200 about a month ago, and it looks like Clevin's been playing left and right side. He's become very dependable defensively and offensively, and that's very interesting. So I'd like to see how Clevin progresses. Let him go into his senior year. I'm not really too worried about him going to free agency and going to another team. He is best friends with Jake Sanderson, and he's friends with Jacob Bernard Docker. He's friends with Shane Pinto. I have no worries about him going into his senior
yeah.
college year, coming out and signing a deal with the Sens, because all of his buddies are on the Sens, and they're on their way up, and I'm sure he would want to be a part of that. Um, Jumping back to Chychrun, Shauna again says Chychrun more skill offensively than Shabbat, room for upside. Don't believe he's hit a ceiling. Your thoughts on replacing Shabbat on first power play? Shabbat analytically has actually been a better power play quarterback than Chychrun this season. Now, whether that's, we mentioned this earlier, don't know whether that's due to just personnel that Chychrun's been with on the power play, but analytically anyway, Shabbat's been the better power play player this season. I think you can put either one of them on first or second power play. Whoever's clicking that night, put them on the rest of the first power play units. Like, this doesn't have to be a set in stone thing. That's the beauty about now having Sanderson, Brandstrom, Shabbat, Chychrun. You have now 4 guys who can all move the puck really well. I'm not discounting Zub, but I mean, when you have so many other talented
Yeah.
players, Zub doesn't need to be on your power play. Um, I think you can just shuffle them around. Whoever's on fire that game, whoever's hot, play them. See what they can do. If they're not cutting it one night, you just swap them out and put another guy in. Like it's beautiful that DJ Smith will have all these combinations of defensemen and forwards to really use how he sees fit. And I think Ottawa's power play gets more lethal with this trade. 100%.
There's no question about that. And yesterday we saw, once it was 6-1, when we were getting power plays, if you noticed, Austin Watson was out there. Obviously they were trying to get him the hat trick, but Brandstrom was quarterbacking one of the power plays, and he looked really good out there. And this is just another guy who like adds that plethora of riches when we have puck moving defensemen who can still defend. And he, Chychrun in this instance can be added to the first pairing, can be added to the second pairing. Chychrun and Shabbat have different offensive shines to them. I would probably say Shabbat's probably a better passer, but Chychrun, his shot is one of the hardest in the league. So that's what we've been missing. So whomever is playing on that, basically whichever pairing is playing with Tim Stützle is the first power play pairing.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
The other interesting thing I wanted to throw out there, Ottawa now doesn't have a first, second, or third round pick this season. So I think Pierre Dorion really can do whatever he wants with future picks if he feels like they can add, another forward to complement the core. I brought it up with a couple of people on Twitter, but if you can add Nick Bukestad, who we've brought up in this stream, or a guy like Connor Sheary to add to your offensive depth, I think you can do that, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. This is the big one. This is the big trade to get done. And they blew it out of the water. The value that they got, the other second round picks 2026, like, dude, that's a player who,
that's when we're contending for a cup.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt in my mind. We're there.
Yeah. Kevin Reed said must be stoked to play some meaningful games. First home game reception blows mine. I hope Saturday is sold out. I'm gonna be there. Matt's gonna be there.
Bennett's probably gonna be there.
Bennett will likely be there. My co-founder of the Senstennial, Alan, he was our original producer. He'll probably be there. I'll likely be going with him. So
yeah, all my buddies are going to be there. Shout outs to Boyan, Liam, Chris, and Devin.
Who cares about picks? This is Need Sports YouTube. No, that's exactly it. That's what I'm trying to get across. Like, picks don't matter at this point in time. Like, yes, Ottawa, if you look at their prospect pool, it's not blowing you away like it has in years past, but I don't think it needs to. When you look at their young core, Thomas Chabot's the oldest at 26. All your forwards that you have on long-term contracts, they're all like 24 and under. That is ridiculous. It's really unheard of. Adding Claude Giroux, who's having an all-star caliber season, by the way, that is just cherry on top. He's kind of playing like Alfie. When Alfie was in his mid-30s, that's when he was at his best. And Claude Giroux's playing like a nice seasoned vet who is still a top forward in this league at both ends of the ice. And that's amazing. And everything is just clicking at the right time for this roster. And I think the Sens will go into next season with Josh Norris healthy. They'll be feeling very confident. And I'm very interested to see where that team goes.
Yeah, and total side note on Giroux, he's got more after his contract, and he'll be a staple in our bottom nine or in our top 9 for probably another 4 years, another 5 years. He's Yeah, what's he gonna do? Where's he gonna go? You know, like
Back to Philly, baby. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
He's
God.
here with Ottawa. Um, Sean says followed Chychrun religiously this season, brings a lot more physicality to this game than he gets credit. You know what? I'm looking forward to seeing it. You've probably
Yeah.
watched him more than I have. I've only seen some game footage from last season when I was checking out his highlights over the summer when it seemed like Dorion might make a move for him and then didn't. Very excited to see how he fits in the lineup, what happens. I really hope he plays against the Rangers tomorrow night. I know that they're saying that, oh, they want to make sure because he hasn't played hockey in a while. This guy's gunning to play meaningful hockey, and the
Oh yeah,
Sens
he's been
need the
practicing.
Rangers.
Like it's
Yeah,
not like he's, sitting in a wheelchair the whole
yeah.
goddamn time.
Boyan's going to be there too, Matt. So your
I know,
buddy's
I
going to
already
be.
shouted him out. Like what else does he
Yeah.
need? God.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap this up. We've been streaming for almost an hour. Oh my god. Anyway, Jakob Chychrun, an Ottawa Senator. Please drop us your comments here. You can also reach us on Twitter at Senstennial, Instagram as well. I believe at the Senstennial. My mind is racing right now. I don't even
Yeah.
know anymore. Our ads are on the
Ultimately,
screen there, so you can.
yeah, ultimately the exciting thing here is that we just got like an all-star caliber defenseman for pennies on the dollar. He's going to re-sign after next year for a nice long-term contract, and it's going to be team friendly because he's done being the whipping boy anywhere else. And then Alex DeBrinket's going to sign a team friendly deal, and it's going to be hunky dory in Sensland
Hell
because
yeah.
the vibes right now, Matt, what are they?
The vibes are friggin' delicious, dude.
Mm.
I'm
This is
eating
my
them
third
up.
chef's kiss. Third chef's kiss.
Oh my god. Um, Sean, yeah, I see you say you're hoping to be see Clevin play. Man, sure, I wouldn't even mind, but I'm too high on the Chikrin stuff right now. Um, I had someone DM me on Discord asking about Power Play 2 of having Sandy, Chikrin, Pinto, Giroux, and Brass. For I know Brass, everyone's like, something's not one of those players is not like the other, but
Yeah.
Brass has actually been decent on the power play. Like maybe not registering a ton of points, but you can see the passing is still there. He just doesn't have the foot speed he used to have or the as lethal shot, and that's fine. I think on second power play, if Brassard is your weakest player, that's fine. And who
I
knows?
would,
Maybe Dorian bonus add someone else.
yeah, I'd also like to see Gautier there because he, like, when he gets it off, like his shot is lethal.
Yeah, that
Um,
was a wicked release, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think it may be more of an exception rather than the norm. But I do
fair.
like that he showed off that shot, and who knows, maybe he does get some time. Even if he's a net front presence like Brady Kachuk, that might be a nice
Yeah,
spot for him.
yeah, he's a
Anyway,
big fella. So
yeah. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Go Sens go, baby. Jake Chychrun, now an Ottawa Senator. Very, very excited about this. I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. So
yeah,
I guess
I
rewatch the stream. That's
yeah,
all I can.
yeah. Go
That's what
Sens
all we
go at
talk.
this point.
Yeah. So yeah. Thanks everybody for watching, and let's get let's get the Sens in the playoffs. Let's get some dubs, and let's see how they can do against some of the big boys in the league here coming
Yeah,
up on the schedule.
you bet.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Go Sens go, and we'll see you on Twitter. Peace.